What is going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the top 3 best Sorceress builds in POE of Exile 2. In this guide I will give you a quick overview of the best setups for both ascendancies, so the Stormweaver and the Chronomancer. Then I will explain what skill gems and upgrades should you focus on. Then as well we'll see what is the best gear and how to get it for both the mid-game and end-game. And then finally, we will go over the passive tree, attributes, your skill rotations, and even what Atlas passive should you use, so we would be able to get the highest damage possible and much more. If you are looking for any of these builds on the website, then click my link in this video's description or the pinned comment. This setup is super fun and has insane amount of lightning damage. Also, as you can see, it is one of the most visually impressive builds in the game, as the Sorceress can paralyze and destroy monsters with a barrage of lightning. Our build has insane amount of AoV and great speed farming potential, by shredding through the maps and all the other endgame content with ease. All of these 3 skills, so the Archmage, the Lightning Incandescent and the Spark skills, together make up the bulk of our insane damage. At some point in the later game, some lowered gear players might run into a mana problem, but lucky for us, the Sorceress has many tools to address this problem, and with optimized gear we need nothing more than a single stat roll on our weapon or gear to completely solve this issue. So if you want to fill out your entire screen with sparks of lightning and speed clear through the hundreds of enemies in few seconds, then let's get right into it. So with all of this said, let me show you the build. For the main class we have chosen the Sorceress and our ascendancy is the Stormweaver. And for our first skill we have the Spark, and we are going with the support gems such as the Pierce, Arcane Tempo, Acceleration, Persistence and Wild Shards. Then second we got the Lightning Incandescent with the Controlled Destruction, Elemental Focus, Considered Casting, Lightning Mastery and Execute. Then next we got the Orbs of Storm with Lightning Exposure, Strip Away, Conduction, Fount of Mana and Magnified Effect. Then next we have a Mana Tempest with Inspiration, Premeditation and Murderous Intent. Then next we have Conductivity with gems like the Hex Bloom and the Heightened Curse and Focus Curse. Then next we have the Enfeeble with the Curse Ground and Expands. Then next we have the Voltaic Mark with no gems. Then next we have the Archmage with also no gems selected. And finally for the last one we got the Mana Remnants with Clarity, Vitality and Cannibalism. Next up we have our passive skill tree. In very simple terms, every character is granted 1 passive skill point every time they level up, and are sometimes even granted more for completing certain quests. We have 3 node types, so small nodes, notable nodes and keystones. All of them act as checkpoints that you want to reach, and make a path to build around a specific playstyle. So let's take a look at our setup. And we want to start at the spell damage node and make our way like this, until we get the raw power and the Path of Storms. Then now we make our way all the way up here, and get this overexposure. Then from here we can circle back a little, and get the Arcane Blossom and then these 2 more nodes. Then now we make our way all the way up here until the top, then take the right like this, and get these 2 nodes, called the Power Conduction and the Pure Power. And now from here we can make our way all the way to the right side, and on our way we can pick up all of these nodes in no particular order. As soon as you unlock the Constant Gale Ascension, which gives us the Arcane Surge, then now we can invest our points into the left side. But until that point, just get everything on the right. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for our Ascension setup this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Constant Gale, then the Force of Will, then next up get the Strike twice, and then finally get the Scourging Winds node. To simplify my decision making so you could easier understand, then we wanted to prioritize the raw power, Path of Storms, Arcane Blossom and the Overexposure, as this will give us the biggest build upgrades to not only damage but mana as well, so we wanted to get them first. And then for the rest we invested into more mana regen, more skill effect duration, and just more damage, which will make our character extremely powerful. As most importantly, because of the Archmage skill, the more mana we have, the more insane damage we can do. Next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Attuned Wand. And you don't have to, but if you can, then get some of these bonus stats like increased spell damage and lightning damage to attacks. Also, extra mana stat could be helpful as well. Then for the helmet we have the Coral Circlet with Energy Shield, and for the bonus stats get the Maximum Life, Fire Resistance and Cold Resistance. Then for the chest we have the Bone Raiment with Energy Shield, percentage increase to max Energy Shield and the Fire and Cold Resistance. Then for the belt we have the Ornate Belt with reduced charm charges, maximum energy shield and fire or cold resistance. Then for the gloves we got the jeweled gloves with energy shield, and for the bonus stats get the maximum life, maximum energy shield and fire or cold resistance. Then for boots we are using the feathered sandals with energy shield, and for the bonus, at this time you 100% only want this, and it is as high movement speed as possible. Then for our first ring we got the ruby ring with fire resistance, and for the extras we want any other type of resistances like the lightning and etc. While on the second one we got the sapphire ring with cold resistance, and for the extras again we want more resistances of any type or the maximum energy shield. And then finally for the amulet we got the azure amulet with increased mana regeneration, and for the extras we have maximum energy shield. As the game just launched, so this is the starter setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. Your weapon is the most important upgrade, so prioritize any type of flat damage or increased attack speed. Specifically, the lightning damage roll will be the most important one, as your skills themselves do a lot of conversion. And then for defenses, make sure that you're regularly updating the base type of your gear, so prioritize energy shield, maximum life, and any type of resistance that you can. Also, movement speed on boots is a good option as well. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. We want to start our main rotation by first off activating the Archmage, which while active will give our non-channeling spells cost additional mana, but now in return we will deal extra lightning damage based on our DPS and our maximum mana. And then from here we can simply spam the spark and the orb of storm, and this will fill our entire screen with the lightning that will destroy enemies in seconds. As you can see, this rotation is pretty straightforward. All you need to do is basically keep spamming the main rotation, and then use the rest of the filler skills for bosses or depending on the specific situation. If you ever run into the mana problem, then remember all the ways that I previously said on how we can increase it, and then also we can use the Mana Tempest and Mana Remnants to recover it even faster. And this might sound obvious, especially at the beginning when you might not have unlocked the Archmage skill. But if you run out of mana, then just simply cast less skills and wait. You will be doing very high damage anyways, so casting fewer skills won't really impact the gameplay that much, but it may reduce your mana consumption, especially if you're undergeared or underleveled. This setup's main playstyle is built around putting up a frost wall, and then blasting enemies with the ice comet. And as the cold penetration and cold exposure is incredibly OP in the endgame, so this build works amazing on big groups of enemies, where we simply use 2 skill combo and cover our entire screen with the frost projectiles that explode and do massive amounts of damage. On top of this, we are going to be using nodes like Now and Again, Footprint in the Sand and many more, to completely reset our cooldowns so we can basically spam our frost walls and speed farm through every single content in the game. Then on top of this, for our defense we are going to be focusing on the energy shield and its recharge rate, so we could get unlimited amount of shields and much more. So let me show you the build, and for the main class I have chosen to go with the Sorceress, and our ascendancy is the Chronomancer. Then for the first skill we have the Frost Wall with the support gem called the Inspiration, Font of Mana and Font of Blood. Then second we get the Comet with the spell Cascade, Arcane Tempo and Unleash. Then next we got the Cold Snap with Magnified Effect, Consider Casting and Inevitable Critical. Next we have the Frost Bomb with the Fast Forward, Second Wind and Ingenuity. Next up we have the Lightning Warp with just the Shock Siphon. Next we got the Temporal Rift with the Clarity. Then for one of the last ones we have the Cast on Freeze with the Impetus, Comet and the Spell Echo. And finally for our last one we are using the Arctic Armor with the Glaciation and Vitality. Most of this setup is structured around using the Frost Wall and the Comet to delete enemies in seconds. So we use gems and skills that will support and increase their size and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you are interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at the spell damage node. And our goal is to first of all focus on the spell damage nodes and only afterwards on the defense. So let's get the Raw Power and the Path of Winter. Then next let's go to the left and take the Exploit the Elements. Then from here we keep on moving forwards, and here, where the path splits, you only want to take both of these. So the Climate Change and the Overexposure. Then now keep moving forwards until the end and get all of these. Then from here we now want to move to the right side and get only the Damage and the Freeze build-up node. And then from here we can go back all the way from here where we began and unlock all the defense nodes in whatever order you prefer. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again. And for Ascendancy build, this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the footprints in the sand. Then second, get the apex of the moment. Then third, Navan again. And then finally select the circular heartbeat. Next up we have our Atlas passives. And the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus passives that spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as in expeditions or in rituals. So when we start, we want to first of all get to the left side, and then get all of these. And then keep going down until you get this keystone called the Deadly Evolution. Then from here we circle back a little, and this time keep going up until we get the second keystone called the Unstoppable Energies. And then from this point and onwards, you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you prefer. But then on top of this, we have even more passives, which in order that you unlock them doesn't really matter, as long as you do this in this exact path. And this is how it should look like for the ritual. Then next we have Delirium. Then third we have the bosses. And then on top of this, we have the pinnacle bosses. Then next we also have our expedition setup. And then finally our breach setup. Next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the attuned wand with the mana drain, and for the bonus stats we want extra lightning damage, increased spell damage, max mana, intelligence, and more levels to all cold spells. Also we got an offhand called the advanced woven focus with the energy shield, and for more we want increased cold damage, max energy shield, intelligence, and increased critical hit chance. Then for the helmet we have the advanced feather tiara with the energy shield, and for more we want max life, accuracy, cold and fire resistance. Then for chest we have the advanced altar robe with the energy shield. And for bonus stats we are using the max life, more spirit, life regen per second and chaos resistance. Then for belt we have the fine belt with the faster flask charges per second. And for more we want max life, max energy shield, cold resistance and fire resistance. Then for gloves we got the advanced interested gloves with the energy shield. And for more we want max energy shield, max life and lightning resistance. Then for boots we're using the advanced feather sandals with the energy shield. And for more we want increased movement speed, max life, fire and lightning resistance. Then for our first ring we got the sapphire ring with the cold resistance. And for more we want adds to lightning damage, evasion and increased mana regen. While on the second one we have the topaz ring with the lightning resistance. And for more we want increased cast speed and life regen per second. And then finally for the amulet we got the lapis amulet with the intelligence. And for more we want accuracy, max mana, more spirit and chaos resistance. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is a starter setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. So our main rotation and the highest DPS combo is to first of all put up a frost wall, and then blast down your enemies with the comet. Then also we can occasionally use the frost bomb before casting the comet, but this is only required for the rare sword bosses. And then finally we can also use the lightning warp to call the enemies and then use the temporal rift to reposition behind the safety of our frost wall. On top of this, from time to time I like to use the cold snap, but I found that it's often best to keep the boss frozen while I continue to spam the comet, than just rather using the spam damage, but again it's up to you. This setup's main playstyle is built around putting up a frost wall and then blasting the enemies with infinite amount of fireballs. Cold exposure in the combination with the fire skills is very incredibly OP in the endgame, so this build works amazing on big groups of enemies where we simply use 2 skill combo and cover our entire screen with the projectiles that explode and do massive amounts of damage. On top of this, we are going to be using nodes like the Scoring Winds, Constant Gale and many more to increase our cast speed and mana, so we could basically spam our frost walls and speed farm through every single content in the game. And then on top of this, for our defense we are going to be focusing on the energy shield and its recharge rate, so we could easily get over 15,000 shields and much more. So let me show you the build, and for the main class I have chosen to go with the Sorceress, and our ascendancy is the Storm Weaver. Then for the first skill we have the Fireball with the support gems called the Unleash, Scatter Shot, Vault Shards, Rising Tempest and the Control Destruction. Then second we get the Flame Wall with the Fortress, Persistence, Arcane Tempo and the Fire Mastery. Then next we get the Frost Wall with the Icicle, Spell Cascade and Glaciation. Then next we have the Frost Bomb with the Strip Away and Magnified effect. Next up we have the Cast on Freeze with the Comet and Impetus. Next we go the Grim Feast with the Clarity. And finally, for the last one, we're using the Hypothermia with the Persistence and Heightened Curse. Most of the setup is structured around using the Frost Wall and the Fireballs to delete enemies in seconds, so we use gems and skills that will support and increase their size and damage, while the rest are powerful buffs and utility skills that usually get activated in the background. Next up we have our passive tree, and if you are interested in a full in-depth guide on how it works, then check out my beginner guide. So let's take a look at our setup, and we want to start at this energy shield node, and then take all of these three, so pure energy, rapid recharge and the dampening shield. Next up, let's go to the right and get this whole circle. Then now we want to go to the left side and get both of these as well, so the essence infusion and the exploit the elements. Then from here, let's keep continuing our way up top. And on our way, we want to get the overexposure and the climate change. And then from here we go to the right and first get the physics fragmentation, and then also the thin ice. And then from here we want to go back all the way from where we began, and just unlock these defensive nodes in whatever order you prefer. Overall, there are two ways to approach spending points in the passive tree. So either way, maximizing every single level and then continuously refunding your points, or perhaps just be a little bit less efficient, but focus on already the mid to end game build, which is exactly what we did. But in what way you do it is of course up to you, as long as you use the same exact path at your final version. And then now let's go all the way to the middle again, and for Ascendancy build this is what we have. So at the beginning you want to unlock the Scoring Winds, as it doubles the effectiveness of our exposure applied by the Frost Bomb, which then scales even further with the passive tree and the Strip Away support gem. Then second we get the Constant Gale for the 10% more cast speed and 20% more mana regen rate. This build will often struggle with the mana, so any additional mana regeneration is always useful. Then next we get the Strike Twice, which now lets you apply 2 shock stacks to your enemies, and in combination with our fourth option, the Shaper of the Storms, your cold damage can now also apply shock. This unlocks a new way of scaling your damage by shocking and freezing the enemies at the same time, which makes this build very powerful in the late game. Next up we have our Atlas passives, and the general idea behind this is to aim for bonus passives that spawn a lot of grouped up monsters, such as in expeditions or in rituals. So when we start we wanna first of all go to the right side, and then get all of these nodes, and then keep going down until you get this keystone called the Deadly Evolution. Then from here we circle back a little, and this time keep going up until we get a second keystone called the Unstable Energies. And then from this point and onwards you can unlock the rest of the nodes in whatever order you want. But then on top of this, we have even more passives, which in order you want to unlock them doesn't really matter, so again it's up to you. And this is how it should look like for the ritual. Then next we have Delirium. Then third we have the bosses. And then on top we have the pinnacle bosses. Then next we also have our expedition setup, and then finally our bridge setup. Next we have our gear. The weapon of our choice is the Chimming Staff with the Schedule of Power, and for more we want increased cold damage, then also increased spell damage and plus levels of all spell skills. Then for the helmet we have the Expert Vicar Tiara with the Energy Shield, and for bonus stats we need max Energy Shield, max mana, lightning resistance and fire resistance. Then for the chest we have the Expert Altar Robe with the Energy Shield, and for more we got the fastest start of the Energy Shield recharge. Then also the max energy shield, more to spirit and fire and chaos resistance. Then for the belt we have the linen belt with the increased mana flask recovery. And for more we want to go with the max mana and life, and cold and fire resistance. Then for gloves we got the blue flame bracers with the armor and energy shield. And with them we also got the intelligence, fire and cold resistance. And 100% of our damage is now converted to cold. As I said previously, this is not required, as our build only uses the best of both worlds, so both the cold and fire damage, and it doesn't really matter if we 100% go into one or another, as long as we use the best skills that are associated with the element. So with that said, if you can't afford it or don't want to get the best in slot item, then you can go with any other similar gloves with a similar stats. Then for boots we are using the Expert Wrap Sandals with the Energy Shield, and for bonus stats we get increased movement speed, max life, lightning and fire resistance. Then for our first ring we got the Ruby Ring with the fire resistance, and for more we got max life, cold and lightning resistance. while then on the second one we have the Sapphire Ring with the cold resistance, and for more we got max life, max mana and lightning resistance. And then finally for the amulet we got the Stellar Amulet with more to all attributes, and for more we need more to spirit, lightning and chaos resistance. No matter which gear you choose, just at least try to get 75% resistance cap on all 4 elements. This is a starter setup, which should be more of an example of what stats and prefixes to look for. And now finally, let's quickly take a look at how this build will work. So our main rotation and the highest DPS combo is to first of all place down our Frost Bomb and the Flame Wall under the enemies. Then now use Hypothermia. Then afterwards use the Frost Wall on top of the targets. Then now shoot the fireballs towards the location where you place the Frost Wall, and then from here just maintain the Flame Wall and the exposure from the Frost Bomb. In a quick summary, what we basically want to do is place the Frost with the Flame Wall to burn the enemy and buff our attacks, so then we use the Hypothermia for more buffs, and then from here we just stun and immobilize the enemies with the Frost Wall, while at the same time spamming the fireballs until the enemy is dead. But to be honest, like you can see from the gameplay, on pretty weak enemies all you need to do is just spam the fireball in the combination of any other spell, and because of our setup they will not stand a single chance against us. So let me know what you think about this build in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, then you definitely don't want to miss my top 3 best builds video, where I showed even more powerful builds, so click the screen now and I'll see you in the next one.